They said the forest at the edge of Hollow Ridge was cursed, but no one ever explained why. People simply learned not to enter after sunset. Yet Rowan, a young blacksmith apprentice, didn't believe in curses. When his mentor disappeared inside that forest 3 weeks earlier, Rowan decided to search for him. As he walked between the crooked trees, he noticed something odd. Metallic clinks echoing faintly, like a hammer striking an anvil. The sound shouldn't have been possible this far from town. Drawn toward it, Rowan followed the rhythmic echo until he reached a clearing. There, in the dim moonlight, stood a forge taller than any he'd ever seen. Its chimney exhaled thick, red smoke. The ground around it was wet and dark. When Rowan knelt and touched the soil, his fingers came away slick with blood. Before he could retreat, the hammering stopped. Heavy footsteps approached from inside the forge. A deep, guttural voice growled. "Another one comes looking for the old man." Rowan froze. He knew that voice. It belonged to his mentor, yet something was terribly wrong. It was distorted, inhuman. The figure that stepped out of the forge barely resembled the mentor Rowan once knew. His skin was charred black, fused with streaks of molten iron that pulsed like veins. One arm was replaced entirely by a jagged metal tool shaped like a cross between a hammer and a cleaver. His eyes glowed a dull, blood red. "Master Aldrich, what happened to you?" Rowan whispered. Aldrich tilted his head as if confused by the question. Then he smiled, a cracking, iron-splitting grin. "The forest showed me the true craft," he said. "Metal shaped by fire is nothing, but metal shaped by blood lives." Rowan stepped back as the ground beneath Aldrich shifted. What Rowan assumed was stone revealed itself as bones. Countless bones, cemented together with dried blood. Aldrich lifted his weapon arm. "I needed stronger material. Human material." Rowan's heart pounded. His mentor had not simply changed. He had become something new, something forged. Aldrich took another step forward. The trees around them groaned, as if reacting to his presence. "Come, boy," Aldrich said softly. Rowan ran. Branches tore at his face and arms, but he didn't look back. The forest seemed to shift around him, paths twisting into new shapes, guiding him deeper instead of out. The metallic footsteps grew louder, slow, confident, unhurried. "You cannot run from craft." Aldrich's distorted voice echoed through the trees. "Blood remembers its maker." Rowan stumbled into a ravine where a makeshift workshop stood, a smaller version of the forge, but filled with horrifying creations. Blades made of bone, armor stitched from layers of human skin, tools that pulsed like organs. Then Rowan saw it, Aldrich's journal lying on a blood-spattered table. He grabbed it and flipped through the pages. The notes described a ritual called the Red Forging, a process that binds living flesh to metal, creating weapons that hunger for more blood. Rowan's stomach twisted. His mentor hadn't been corrupted by accident. He sought this transformation. And now he sought Rowan. As Rowan backed away, a blade crafted from a human spine twitched on the table, turning toward him as if sensing his heart. Rowan shoved the twitching weapon aside and fled toward a narrow tunnel carved into the ravine wall. The passage was cold, lined with rusted chains and hooks that jingled as he ran past. The air thickened with a metallic scent, fresh blood. He followed the tunnel until it opened into a cavern illuminated by a molten red glow. In the center stood a colossal anvil made entirely of skulls fused together. Hanging above, it was a creature Rowan almost didn't recognize. It had once been human, but its flesh was molded into the shape of a giant hammer, its limbs stretched and twisted like metal rods. Its face, frozen in agony, stared at Rowan with hollow eyes. A whisper escaped its cracked lips. "Run!" Before Rowan could react, Aldrich entered the cavern behind him. "My masterpiece," Aldrich said proudly, gesturing to the tortured hammer creature. "But you will be greater. Your bones are strong. Your heart, fearless. You will become my finest work." Rowan backed away, but the ground beneath him quivered. Chains writhed toward his ankles like snakes. The chains lashed onto Rowan's legs, dragging him toward the skull anvil. He clawed at the ground, but the chains tightened like constricting serpents. Aldrich raised his weapon arm, its edge glowing with molten heat. "Do not fear, boy. Pain is only the beginning of creation." Rowan's mind raced. There had to be a way to stop this. His eyes flicked to the journal still clutched in his hand. One line stood out. "Blood forged by its own will can break the red forging." Rowan realized what it meant. The weapons Aldrich created were alive. They acted on hunger, not on their own desire. If Rowan resisted with his own will, there was a chance. Summoning every ounce of strength, Rowan slashed his palm open on one of the jagged chains. Blood spilled across the floor and onto the skull anvil. The cavern shook violently. The chained hammer creature above shuddered and screamed. Aldrich roared, "What have you done?" Rowan pressed his bloody hand against the anvil. The red glow pulsed, once, twice, then exploded outward in a shockwave of screaming metal. The shockwave hurled Aldrich backward, smashing him into the cavern wall with a metallic clang. The chains restraining Rowan loosened for a moment before tightening again, as if struggling against a new force. The skull anvil glowed brighter, cracks forming across its surface. From within those cracks, whispers seeped out, voices of the victims whose bones made the anvil. "End him," Rowan's breath trembled. The hammer creature above twisted violently, its twisted limbs snapping free from the hooks. It fell to the floor with a sickening thud, dragging itself toward Aldrich. Aldrich pushed himself up, fury burning in his molten eyes. "You dare defy the craft?" His weapon arm stretched unnaturally, the metal forming serrated blades that lashed outward. The hammer creature lunged, taking the hit, but instead of dying, it absorbed the blade, the metal sinking into its flesh like water. Rowan realized the anvil wasn't destroying Aldrich's creations, it was waking them. The cavern pulsed with a heartbeat that wasn't his. The red forging was collapsing and birthing something new. The cavern walls began to shift, metal growing like vines across the stone, twisting into living shapes. Faces formed within the metal, screaming, writhing, begging to be freed. Aldrich staggered forward, the ground melting into molten veins beneath his steps. "The forging is not yours to command," he roared, thrusting his weapon arm toward Rowan. Before the strike landed, the hammer creature intercepted again, slamming into Aldrich with enough force to crack the cavern floor. Rowan felt the chains weakening. He pulled, this time with purpose, letting more of his blood drip onto the anvil. The skulls glowed brighter, faces shifting, mouths opening. A chorus of voices rose. "We obey the will of the living." The metal around Rowan recoiled, releasing him. He collapsed to his knees, dizzy but free. Aldrich turned toward him, molten rage spilling from every crack in his body. "You think you can unmake me?" he snarled. "I am the Bloodsmith. I am eternal." But behind him, the awakened creations, dozens of them, crawled from the shadows, their bone blades trembling with hunger. Aldrich swung his blade arm toward the approaching horrors, slicing through the first creature effortlessly. But instead of dying, the creature split into two, both halves regrowing missing limbs. Aldrich's expression shifted from rage to fear. "No, you belong to me," he shouted. The creatures didn't listen. They moved in waves, crawling over each other, bone scraping bone, metal scraping flesh. Rowan forced himself to stand. The anvil pulsed in sync with his heartbeat, responding to his will. "You were their maker," Rowan said through gritted teeth. "Now face what you made." Aldrich screamed and unleashed a blast of molten metal, incinerating several creations. But the molten remains reformed into twisted new shapes, even more ravenous. The swarm overtook him, dragging him toward the skull anvil. Aldrich clawed at the ground, leaving molten streaks. "Rowan, help me. I can fix this. I can make you." His words turned to choking as dozens of skeletal hands pulled him toward the glowing surface. The anvil's cracks widened, ready to consume. Aldrich's body slammed into the anvil, merging with it as the skulls screeched in a tortured chorus. The metal fused with his flesh, pulling him inward inch by inch. He howled, thrashing wildly, molten blood splattering across the cavern. The creatures clung to him, forcing him down until only his face remained above the surface, twisted, terrified, sinking. "Rowan, please," but Rowan didn't move. The anvil demanded a final act of will. Rowan stepped forward, raising the journal. "Creation isn't pain," he said. "It's choice." He slammed the journal onto the anvil. The impact triggered a violent eruption of red light. The cavern walls buckled. The ground cracked open. The awakened creatures screamed as their bodies began to melt back into bone and dust. Aldrich's face vanished beneath the anvil, consumed completely. The red forging shattered. The cavern collapsed in on itself, but the anvil remained untouched, glowing faintly. Rowan staggered toward it, exhausted and trembling. The whispers had gone silent, finally at peace. He placed his hand on the warm metal. It no longer pulsed with hunger, only with memory. A final inscription formed across its surface as if carved by invisible hands. The craft follows the will of the living. Rowan took a breath. The forest above began to brighten as dawn approached. He walked out of the ravine, leaving the anvil buried beneath stone and ash. As he emerged into the morning light, the forest felt different, lighter, breathing again. But as Rowan turned toward home, he failed to notice the faint red glow that flickered beneath the earth, as if something deep below was waiting, watching, forging anew.